Stop. Close the other tabs. Put the phone face down. What I'm about to tell you is not a rumor and not a theory. This is a reconciliation problem that appeared on an internal ledger this morning and should never have reached daylight. At 6:12 a.m., London time, a message landed in my inbox. Not a press alert, not a market note. A compliance ping from someone who does not ping unless something is already broken. 4 words, inventory adjustment completed overnight. While everyone was asleep, 40 metric tons of gold were reclassified. Not sold, not exported. Reclassified. That distinction matters more than the headline number, and it's the reason depositors should be paying attention. I saw the report. It's a custody reconciliation stamped with yesterday's date and today's time. It lists beginning balances, movements, and end-of-day totals. The math does not argue. 40 tons moved out of one column and did not appear in another. The footnote explains it away with language you only use when you are protecting a system, not telling the truth. The event did not start last night. Last night is when it finished. For weeks, my sources in the Vault operations teams talked about tightening schedules, delayed access windows, and temporary changes to allocation rules. Nothing dramatic, nothing public. Until the numbers stopped lining up. Let's count together. 40 metric tons is roughly 1.28 million troy ounces. At a conservative valuation, you're looking at tens of billions of dollars. This is not retail flow. This is not jewelry demand. This is balance sheet gravity. Here's the part most people miss. Deposited gold is not the same as owned gold. When you deposit metal into a system, you receive a claim. That claim is governed by terms, schedules, and emergency clauses. When stress rises, those clauses wake up. At 5:41 a.m., a custody desk flagged a shortfall against deliverable balances. Not against total balances, against deliverable balances. That means metal that is supposed to be available on demand was no longer available under normal terms. The response was immediate and procedural. Reclassify assets. Invoke operational necessity. Preserve continuity. I saw the decision tree. If the metal stays classified as immediately deliverable, you risk a run. If you move it to a restricted category, you buy time. Time is the only asset that matters in a custody event. Now the math. Depository systems operate on ratios. Not one-to-one, ratios. As long as withdrawals remain within modeled ranges, the system looks solid. But when withdrawal intent spikes even slightly above normal, the math flips. You don't need everyone to ask for their metal. You need a small, informed minority. My sources in the Vault told me requests for allocation verification tripled in 48 hours, not withdrawals. Verification. That's worse. Because verification requests are the first step taken by people who know what to do next. When that happens, risk managers don't ask whether the metal exists in aggregate. They ask whether it exists in the right place, at the right time, under the right legal status. Last night, the answer was no. Here's how 40 tons disappear without moving a single bar. You change its status. Allocated becomes earmarked. Earmarked becomes encumbered. Encumbered becomes unavailable for standard withdrawal. On paper, nothing is gone. In reality, access is gone. Think of it like a parking garage, 100 cars inside. 40 are suddenly blocked behind a locked gate labeled emergency use only. The cars didn't vanish, but you can't drive them out. Why do this overnight? Because daylight brings questions. Overnight brings silence. Systems update. Reports publish. By the time anyone outside notices, the numbers have already settled into the new normal. At 6:18 a.m., a secondary message came through. Client communications template updated. That's the tell. When templates change before questions arrive, someone already knows what's coming. You'll be told this was routine, that it reflects logistical optimization, that no depositor has been harmed. Technically, that may be true. Practically, the lesson is brutal. If you are a depositor, you are unsecured against timing. I've seen this before in other assets, cash, bonds, even equities during settlement freezes. The pattern is identical. When systems feel pressure, they don't break loudly. They narrow. The mechanism is simple. Custody systems are designed to function smoothly under trust. Remove trust, and they shift to control. Control always favors the operator. Let me be clear, this is not about conspiracy, this is about incentives. The incentive is to prevent a visible failure. Reclassification does that. Withdrawal denial would not. Why 40 tons? Because that was the buffer. The internal stress model assumed a certain percentage of immediate delivery requests. When projections crossed that line, the buffer was consumed in one administrative action. I saw the timestamp. The reclassification was approved at 4:57 a.m., signed off by two departments that rarely agree on anything. That alone tells you the urgency. For depositors, the takeaway is not panic, it's awareness. Deposits are promises. Promises are conditional. Conditions change when pressure arrives. If you believe your deposit is the same as possession, last night disproved that belief. If you think audits prevent this, understand that audits check existence, not accessibility. The final piece of math. If 40 tons can be reclassified without notice, the limiting factor is not supply. It's permission. Permission is granted by rulebooks, not reality. At 6:22 a.m., my contact sent one last line. Inventory stabilized. System secure. That sentence is never written for clients. It's written for regulators and boards. It means the operator is safe. The system survived the night. Depositors learn nothing unless they know how to read between columns. Listen closely. This is the part that determines outcomes, not the disappearance, not the reclassification. What happens next is where depositors either understand the rules or learn them the hard way. There are only 3 paths from here, not variations, not shades. 3. I've seen all 3 in internal simulations. 1 is fiction. 1 is brutal and fast. 1 is quiet and slow. The first scenario is the unicorn. Everything normalizes. Access windows reopen. Classifications revert. Depositors are told it was a technical adjustment. Trust returns. Metal flows resume. This scenario exists only to calm committees and buy time. Internally, it carries a probability of 0, because once access is restricted without notice, confidence does not regenerate, it erodes. And systems that rely on confidence do not reverse direction without an external shock. The second scenario is default by structure, not an announcement, not a headline, a functional default. Depositors discover that withdrawal terms have changed. Queues form. Some requests are honored. Others are delayed, netted, or settled in cash equivalents. The operator remains solvent. The books balance. The loss is absorbed by those who believe availability was guaranteed. This is not theft. It is rule execution. I've read custody agreements that spell this out in dense language. Priority of system stability over individual claims. Under stress, operators are permitted to substitute time, cash, or alternative assets for immediate delivery. The internal probability for this path sits around 60%, not because it is desired, because it preserves the institution. The third scenario is the one most people miss because it lacks drama. Slow suffocation, no explicit denial, no public default. Access remains technically open but practically constrained. Withdrawal minimums increase. Processing times extend. Verification requirements multiply. Each step is defensible. Together, they change behavior. This is how systems reduce pressure without triggering alarms. Most depositors adapt, they wait, they comply. A few push harder and are quietly resolved. The metal remains in the system, but it stops circulating freely. Over months, not days, availability becomes conditional in practice, even if not in name. This scenario is the most likely, because it minimizes reputational damage while achieving the same result as a lockup. Control. Now indicators, not narratives. Signals that tell you which path is unfolding. First, inventory classifications. Watch the ratio between immediately deliverable and total reported holdings. When total stays flat but deliverable shrinks, access is being rationed. This is not supply destruction, it is permission withdrawal. Second, processing times. If standard withdrawal windows extend without formal notice, pressure is rising. Systems advertise certainty through speed. Delays are a form of communication. Third, language changes. When communication shifts from definitive terms to conditional phrasing, something has already happened. Phrases like subject to availability, operational considerations, or alternative fulfillment are not neutral. They are legal shields. Fourth, correlated quiet failures. Smaller custodians, logistics providers, or brokers experiencing unrelated issues at the same time. These are pressure leaks. The system is venting stress through the periphery. Fifth, premiums in the private market. Not screens, not quotes, real transactions. When private premiums detach while official valuations remain stable, the market is telling you access has a price. Now, strategy. This is not about panic. Panic accelerates loss. This is about alignment with how systems behave under stress. First principle, deposits are not possessions. They are claims. Claims are only as strong as the rules governing them. When rules change, claims change. Second principle, do not attempt to time releases. Waiting for access to normalize assumes normalization is the goal. Under stress, normalization is rarely the objective. Stability is. Third principle, separate exposure from access. If an asset matters to you in a crisis, your ability to access it must not depend on institutional discretion. This does not mean abandoning systems entirely. Systems provide efficiency, but efficiency and resilience are opposites under pressure. Internal guidance I saw repeatedly over the years converged on the same allocation logic. 20 to 30% of net worth in assets not subject to rehypothecation, substitution, or administrative delay. Not traded, not optimized, held. Physical versus paper is not ideology, it is hierarchy. Paper claims sit inside the system. Physical possession sits outside. When stress hits, the system protects itself first. This does not require dramatic moves. It requires gradual repositioning before urgency arrives. Once access is questioned publicly, optionality collapses. Everyone moves at once. Systems respond by narrowing further. Avoid leverage. Leverage converts timing risk into certainty. Under custody stress, leverage ensures you are acted upon rather than acting. Avoid concentration within a single operator. Multiple accounts under one rulebook are one account. Redundancy inside the same framework is an illusion. Maintain liquidity for operations, but understand its limits. Cash inside the system is fast until it isn't. When controls appear, speed reverses. Most importantly, stop outsourcing responsibility. Custodians manage assets. They do not share risk symmetrically. When trade-offs are required, the asymmetry becomes visible. I want to be clear. This is not a call to fear. Fear causes mistakes. This is a call to realism. Systems behave predictably under stress. They conserve themselves. The disappearance of 40 tons was not a theft. It was a lesson. Access is conditional. Possession is binary. I've watched intelligent, well-informed people assume that legality equals availability. It does not. Legality protects the operator. Availability protects the holder. The final warning is the one that ended more than one internal briefing I attended. Better to be early by a year than late by a minute. Because when the minute arrives, your options are no longer decisions. They are outcomes chosen for you.